Hey everyone, today we're going to build an AI Parasite SEO system. Now, I know this is a controversial topic and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for releasing this video, but I've just got so many questions on it over the past couple of weeks, I thought I'd drop some knowledge. Now, there's lots of ways to use this, so not every application of this is non-ethical and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to make sure to leave some tips at the end for how you can use this in a more powerful way that is actually more effective, but also a lot more ethical. Now, before we begin, I'm actually going to walk through the tools that we'll be using. So first of all, we're going to be using make.com, which is a workflow automation platform. We use it for most of our AI automation builds. It's a tool that lets you join together lots of different pieces. So we've got Google Sheets, ChatGPT, all that sort of stuff joined together in one place. So we're going to be using Google Sheets, as I just mentioned, and that's just to hold the different URLs that we'll be scraping and rewriting. We'll be using Dumpling AI, which is my tool, and we're going to be using that to scrape the blog posts that we want to rewrite and get clean content out of them. We're going to be using OpenAI ChatGPT, or more technically just OpenAI GPT-4o. So you'll need to set that up in make.com. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go to platform.openai.com, and there is an API key section there to set up this. And then finally, we're just going to rewrite back into Google Sheets. So those are the only tools we're going to be using. As long as you've got those all set up and ready to go, you have everything you need for this video. Now, how you use the system and how you apply it is completely up to you. I'm going to leave some tips at the end for how you can use the system in a more ethical way, or in a more value-add way, so that you're not just spamming the internet. But without further ado, I think there is still a lot to learn. So let me jump into the build right now. So first of all, you need to pick a site that you're going to be a parasite on. Right? You're going to pick a site that you think is doing pretty well at an SEO and look at how many blog posts they have, what keywords they're targeting, and all that sort of stuff. Now for this step, I'm going to use TubeBuddy just as an example of a company that has a blog that you might run a system like this on. When you do this, you don't have to target all of the blog posts. Using all the blog posts is the simplest approach, but if you wanted to be a bit more targeted in your approach, you might use a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush and do targeted keyword research on blogs across a number of different companies and be a bit more selective in the number of blogs and what types of blogs you'll be targeting. For this tutorial, I'm just going to target TubeBuddy, and we're just going to take all of their blogs as a starting point. So if you watched some of my previous videos, I've talked about this in the past. Most sites, if they have some sort of SEO strategy, will have a sitemap. And the way to find that sitemap is to go to the robots.txt, which is usually at the root of the site. So if you just type in /robots.txt in the URL for any sort of site that you're on, usually you'll see something like this. And here you'll see that there is a sitemap. So you're just going to copy the sitemap URL and go to the sitemap. Once you're at the sitemap, sometimes a site will only have one sitemap and that will just have all of the URLs. Other times, if they're a bit more advanced, they'll have broken up their sitemap into different sections. So different sitemaps for different types of posts, different types of pages, that sort of stuff. So here we just want posts because we want blog posts. I'm going to click that. And you'll see now that I have a full list of all the blog posts on the TubeBuddy website. Now you'll see here that there's 279. If I take out the first one, there's 278. A lot of these I don't actually want because they're very TubeBuddy specific. So for example, these TubeBuddy creator celebrations, anything that's just like talking about TubeBuddy specifically, I probably don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all the URLs. I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm just going to ask ChatGPT to clear this list for me. So I'm going to paste in every URL. Can you clean up this list of URLs to only and remove any mentioning TubeBuddy? We're going to do that. It's going pretty well. And normally I'd let this run, but for this tutorial, we don't actually need to do everything. Let's just do the first. Let's do the first 5, right? So I'm going to copy these first 5, go to Google Sheets, and I'm going to paste in these URLs. So each of these goes to a blog post, right? Something like this. It's all pretty good. Cool. And so if I put URL here as the header, What I'm going to do now then is so these URLs, then I'm going to say new blog content. So I'm going to do new blog content, new title. And then if you want, you can even do tags. But for this one, let's keep it simple. Let's not do tags. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrape each of these URLs for the content. And then we're going to take the blog content and generate a new title and new piece of blog content. So to do that, we're going to use make.com, which is our usual AI automation platform that just stitches everything together. So it starts off with Google Sheets. I'm just going to search for rows. So I'm just going to pull in all the rows from my spreadsheet. I've selected the spreadsheet. Just need to pull in everything that is looking good. Let's just pull in the top 5 because we only have 5. So run this now. It should return the first 5 URLs, which it looks like it's done. So it's looking pretty good. Then what we need to do is scrape the content on each of these 5 URLs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag in Dumpling AI, and we have a scrape URL function. And what I'm going to do here is just pass in the URLs. Actually, before I do that, almost forgot. So what we need to do actually is iterate through each of the URLs. So it's because it's not a single URL, we need to first turn it into an array. So for those of you who might not be super familiar with make.com, what I'm doing here is because this Google Sheets action returns a number of different bundles, which is like a format within make.com, a type within make.com, we can't actually iterate through these bundles naturally. What we have to do is actually turn it into an array first. An array is like a list. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to select all and turn the value from here into an array. So if I run this again, you'll see that this becomes a list. So you'll see that there is now a bundle. So these are the inputs, and then the output is this array, which is a list now. So it's got 1 and 2, and then each of them has the URL. So once we have this array, we can actually start to iterate or loop through each of the URLs. So what I'm going to do here is put in a iterator, and I'm going to pass in the array that we just made. Good. Then finally, we can scrape the URLs. So I'm going to pass in the URL from the iterator, and what Dumpling AI will do is it will scrape the website and clean it for you. So it just returns the markdown without all the HTML and the menus and all the stuff you don't want. So press OK. And then let's run that now and see if it works. So it should scrape. Whoops, I'm using the wrong API key. Let me update that. Just got a couple of different API keys because I've been testing the product a lot. Okay, so let me run through this. I might just pause it after one because we don't need to keep running it. But the first operation, you can see we've got the title and we've also got all the content, the blog content from TubeBuddy here. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good. I got all the content here. Third one stopped because I stopped it. But anyway, the second one would be the same. We've got the title as well as all the content. So that's looking really good. Now, this is where the AI Parasite SEO step comes in, right? You've got the blog content that you've got as a starting point. If you've done your keyword research, you might even sort of have specific keywords you want to target here, all that sort of stuff. What you're going to do is then pass the newly scraped content into ChatGPT and get it to rewrite. I actually use Anthropic Claude for a lot of this. I find it to be sometimes a bit more unique in the content it produces. But for this video, I'm just going to use ChatGPT because that's what everyone's familiar with. So you've got to set up your OpenAI account here if you haven't done so already, and set up the API key, all that sort of stuff. For this one, let's use GPT-4o. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this up, right? We're going to make it into an AI content writer. You are a skilled content writer. You will be provided with an old version of a blog post. Please rewrite it for a new publication. Ensure it is concise and SEO optimized. So very simple prompt. You can obviously tweak this. I'm sure everyone has their own prompts for content generation. So feel free to tweak this as you want. And what you're going to do here is just pass in all the data that we script. So we've got the title, You can put in all of this stuff if you want as well. I'm just going to do the title and the content just to keep it very simple. And then we're going to get the output. Let's do 1000 tokens actually. Let's do 1500 tokens and let's press OK. So if we zoom out quickly, so what's happening here is we've created this spreadsheet where we have all these blog post URLs that we pulled from the site that we're doing the Parasite SEO on. We made the spreadsheet, created a make.com automation where we will pull all of the URLs from our spreadsheet. We'll turn them into a list and then iterate through each of the rows. So we're going to go through each URL one by one. And for each URL, we're going to scrape the content, the clean content with Dumpling AI. And then we're going to use OpenAI, ChatGPT, or GPT-4o more specifically, to rewrite the content into a new blog post for us. And then what we're going to do is write it back into this spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do there is this. We need to drag in another Google Sheets, and we're going to update a row this time. Select the spreadsheet, and we are going to update the row, and the row will just be what's coming through in the iterator, which is this one. So the row number should be down here, rows. And then we are going to update with a new title and new content. So this is where we run into a bit of an issue, right? Because the result from ChatGPT is just one block of text. So how do we split it into a title and content? So if you watched some of my previous videos, I've gone through this. You need to use JSON output. So I'm going to do it quickly here, but if you want a more detailed tutorial, feel free to check out some of my older videos. So I'm going to say, please respond with the following JSON objects. And I'm just going to do title will be string, and then content is string. Cool. And you might even want it to do HTML if you want. So you might say, make this HTML. And this just really depends on what system you're going to import your post into. So if you're using WordPress, you might need HTML output or Markdown. If you're using Webflow, you might need a different output. Really depends where your blog is hosted or where you're going to publish these posts. Cool. So we've got that output, and what you need to do here is go into advanced settings and then select the output mode to be JSON object. Cool. So what I want to do now is actually just run through this once. So let's run. Just so I have an output here to run into the JSON parser, which I can then use to put into the Google Sheet. So once this hits 1, I'm just going to stop it. We don't need to run all 5 all at once. I'm going to stop that now. You can see our result here is this. So you got title and then content. And you can see it hasn't rewritten it as much as you'd like. So if I was doing this for real, I'd spend a lot more time iterating on the prompt. You can sort of change your prompt a bit more to make the content a bit more unique and sort of fit your brand voice and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, so we've got this JSON object now. So what I'm going to do is copy the JSON object. I'm going to put it into the JSON parser. And this will turn the JSON object into something that we can use in make.com. So we're going to add a new one, generate, paste in the sample data that we just generated, save, pass in the string, which is the output from ChatGPT here. That's all looking good. And then connect to Google Sheets. And then finally, we can update this with the output from the JSON parser, which has not run yet, which is quite annoying. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to quickly just run this module by itself. Run this module. And I'm going to pass in the output just so we have some variables here. You can see we've got the title and we've got the content because it's passed it really well. Here, what I can do now, I set it all up again. So row number is down here. URL, we don't need to update. Title is the new title and content is the new content. Nice. So that's looking good. So if we run through this now, we should have the first row update. So I'm going to again pause it so we don't run it 5 times. So if you don't want to keep pausing in each time, you can just change this to only return 1. But I've just put 5 just to show you what it would look like if you were running it multiple times. So you can see here, we've now got a new blog post title and a new piece of content. Cool. Now this is quite short. And again, I'll say again, if you're doing this for real, make sure you tweak your prompt enough so that the content is good. And also if you're doing it properly, you wouldn't do a single pass of ChatGPT. you would have multiple passes of ChatGPT on the content to make sure it's a bit longer, more detailed, and high quality. If you want me to make a more advanced tutorial where I do all of that, let me know in the comments, and I can do that as well. Anyways, this is the basic flow, right? We've got the blog post, we've rewritten it, we've got the content. So now how do you actually post it to your blog? Now this is where it varies, right? It depends if you're using WordPress, if you're using Webflow, if you're using something else, if you want to sort of automatically post it to WordPress every time, or you want to do some edits. I usually will do some edits, maybe insert an image, stuff like that before I post it. So I usually just end my make automation here. But if you don't, you can always drag in a WordPress or a Webflow type module here and just auto publish. But I usually stop here. And the way I upload it into WordPress is there's a WordPress plugin. I think it's called mass import or bulk import. Sorry. Let's see if I can find it for you. Yeah, this one. I use this one. So WP all import. So once you have your CSV with all your content, you can just use this tool to import all of your content into your WordPress blog. Cool. So that's the very simple approach. Now, I promised you at the beginning that at the end, I would give you a couple of tips for how to make this not just spam and make it actually a bit more valuable. So step one is what I would do is I would not start with just this, right? I would use a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs and identify the top performing pages on your competitor sites or whatever sites you're targeting. And I say sites specifically because I usually would not recommend targeting just one site. And the benefit of targeting multiple sites is what you want to do then is group the URLs together that are similar. So I would have like URL 1, URL 2, URL 3, and I would group them together if they are similar. And then it changes the process. So instead of scraping just one site for each piece of content that we're producing, I'm scraping 3 sites roughly for each piece of content I'm producing, taking the key point out of all those pieces of content and combining them into a more master piece of content. And I know there's lots of names of this. Some people call it like skyscraper content and all that sort of stuff. But gist of it is you're taking content from lots of different places. So it's almost like you're doing lots of research and combining the best parts and all the knowledge together into one master post. So that's a big one that I highly recommend. Other one is what I've mentioned multiple times in this video already is make sure your prompt is good. And then also, if you haven't watched it already, watch my video on how to do long form content where you chain together multiple ChatGPT, OpenAI, or just AI calls together to generate longer and better quality content. Because you can generate content with a single pass, but it's just generally not to the standard that you would want and also is on the shorter side. So I would highly recommend chaining together lots of different ChatGPT calls together. Cool. So that's it for this video. Bit of a quick one today, a bit more controversial. But if you have any thoughts, feedback, or questions, feel free to leave a comment. If you like this tutorial, please give this video a thumbs up and give me a subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. And with that, I will see you in my next video.